Welcome aboard the Flor de la Mar, a ship of legend, lost beneath centuries of waves. Tonight, we drift into the depths of history, exploring a vessel that once carried unimaginable wealth: gold, silver, gemstones, and treasures from distant lands. As we glide across the gentle currents of the Malacca Strait, imagine the timbers creaking softly beneath your feet, ropes humming with the rhythm of the wind, and chests of treasure shifting quietly in the hold. The story of the Flor de la Maris, not just one of wealth, but of human ambition, adventure, and the eternal pull of the sea. Let yourself relax, breathe with the pulse of the ocean, and drift with me into the sunken world of the Flor de la Mar. Part 1. Maiden voyage and open waters. The morning air was soft, cool, and tinged with the smell of salt carried in from the harbor. Dawn spread gently across the sky, painting it in pale shades of gold and pink, and the rising sun reflected on the water in shimmering streaks that danced across the polished timbers of the Flor de la Mar. The ship rested quietly in the harbor, her hull dark and strong, her masts stretching upward like arms lifted in slow prayer, ready to embrace the open sea. Sailors moved softly across the deck, their steps measured and deliberate, hands brushing gently against ropes and railings. The ship seemed to breathe with them, alive in the rhythm of preparation. Ropes whispered under patient hands as sails were unfurled, catching the first tender hints of wind. The water lapped lightly against the hull, rising and falling in hypnotic, endless rhythm. Waves mirrored the gold of sunrise, casting tiny reflections across the deck, while the polished wood gleamed softly, warm in the morning light. Every creak of timber, every sigh of rope, every gentle pull of line became part of a lullaby that carried the crew and vessel alike into a slow, meditative calm. The harbor began to recede, buildings and docks folding into mist and distance as the Flor de la Mar moved forward with gentle insistence. The horizon stretched endlessly, a ribbon of muted blues and grays, meeting sky and water in soft harmony. Every subtle shift in wind or swell was noted by sailors, who moved in quiet synchronization with the ship's rocking motion. Steps were deliberate, voices minimal, and even laughter seemed to float and fade, absorbed by the gentle sway of deck and hull. Below, in the dim hold of the ship, chests and barrels of supplies pressed softly against one another. The scent of salt, timber, and faint traces of metal from treasure mixed in a grounding, soothing aroma. Each shift of cargo, every subtle thump as timber adjusted to the swell, became part of the continuous rhythm of ship and ocean. Time itself seemed to slow, measured not by hours but by the rise and fall of the waves, the pull of wind on sails, the soft, creaking heartbeat of the vessel. The first days at sea were filled with gentle, repetitive motions that carried the crew into a hypnotic awareness. The sun rose, poured light across the deck, and set again in a slow, predictable arc. Sailors adjusted sails and ropes, scrubbed the deck, checked the hold, and moved in sync with the sway of the ship. Every small task became meditative, a part of the continuous lullaby of the Flor de la Mar. Even the movement of their own bodies aligned with the rocking hull, the rise and fall of the waves, and the quiet whisper of the wind. Clouds drifted lazily across the sky, sometimes casting shadows across the deck, sometimes letting streaks of golden light filter through. Each subtle shift in light and shade was absorbed by the crew, noted quietly, and incorporated into the rhythm of the day. The ship moved with a deliberate grace, rising on one swell and yielding on the next. Each motion unhurried, hypnotic, and deliberate. Below deck, Treasure and supplies shifted softly, joining the symphony of wood, rope, and water. During the day, the soundscape was rich, yet soft. The creaking of timbers harmonized with the whisper of ropes and the gentle slap of water against hull. Each sound was subtle, measured, and continuous, blending seamlessly into the hypnotic environment that carried the crew into calm attention and meditative observation. The motion of the ship became a lullaby, not abrupt or alarming, but consistent, rhythmic, and soothing, teaching patience, awareness, and a quiet harmony with the vast ocean. The nights were even more hypnotic. Moonlight shimmered across the waves, silver streaking the deck and highlighting the soft, dark curves of the hull. Sailors moved silently, adjusting lines or checking lanterns, their movements synchronized with the continuous swell of water. The gentle rocking of the ship seemed slower at night, more deliberate, guiding minds and bodies into calm reflection. Even those below deck, surrounded by chests and barrels of treasure, felt the pulse of the vessel, swaying gently in tune with the heartbeat of the sea. Wind and waves whispered continuously, their soft, repeated rhythms a lullaby that required no attention to follow. The ship flexed, the hull groaned softly, and ropes hummed under subtle tension. All motions merged into one flowing, continuous movement, a meditation in timber, wind, water, and human rhythm. Thoughts drifted slowly, unhurried, carried in the gentle sway of the deck and the hypnotic pulse of the waves. The ocean became a constant companion, both infinite and intimate, guiding the ship and crew across the horizon. Days turned into weeks. The repetition of sunlight, wind, waves, and movement created a serene, unbroken rhythm. Crew and vessel moved as one, adjusting sails and lines, checking cargo, scrubbing timber, climbing, rigging, all in quiet, measured synchrony. The weight of treasure below deck pressed softly, a constant, grounding presence. Every subtle shift of the hull, every gentle rise and fall, every whisper of rope or sigh of timber became part of a lullaby, so continuous and immersive that it blurred the boundary between ship, sea, and mind. The horizon stretched infinitely. Clouds drifted lazily. Birds occasionally appeared in the distance, gliding above waves and disappearing into sunlight. The smell of salt, the feel of timber beneath hands and feet, the taste of sea air, the gentle rocking of hull and cargo wall combined into a continuous sensory meditation. Even moments of distant storms or changing weather were absorbed without alarm. Small adjustments to the hypnotic rhythm of life aboard the Flor de la Mar. As the ship continued her eastward voyage, the Flor de la Mar became more than timber, sail, and cargo. She became a living presence, responsive to wind and wave, breathing with her crew, absorbing each subtle motion and pressure. Sailors adjusted to her, moving as extensions of her timbers and sails, each breath and step synchronized with the pulse of the ocean. Waves rose and fell, wind shifted and whispered, and the ship swayed in continuous, gentle motion, carrying all aboard into deep, serene awareness. Evenings were quiet and meditative. Lanterns cast a soft glow across deck and rigging. The water lapped gently, rhythmic and endless, creating a soft, hypnotic cadence that merged with the creak of timber and whisper of ropes. Stars emerged above, scattered across the darkening sky, reflected faintly on the water, a soft glitter that reinforced the endless continuity of the voyage. The ship, crew, and ocean existed as one entity, moving slowly, calmly, and hypnotically across infinite horizons. The days passed in gentle rhythm. Sailors woke with the sun, moving softly across the deck to adjust lines and inspect sails. Hands glided along ropes worn smooth by centuries of use, feeling the subtle friction and weight of tension. Each knot and splice became familiar, its texture grounding the crew in the continuous flow of their lives aboard. The scent of timber mingled with the sharp temps of salt and the faint metallic aroma of treasure below deck. It was a constant, unchanging presence, anchoring each sailor in the hypnotic rhythm of the ship. Meals were simple, prepared slowly, shared quietly. Bowls and utensils clinked softly, and the occasional laugh or murmur of conversation melted into the sounds of wind and water. Even the simple act of eating became meditative, a way to feel connected to the vast ocean surrounding them. The sway of the ship guided each movement, making every step deliberate, measured, and in harmony with the vessel. Climbing the rigging became a slow, calming practice. Hands gripped ropes and wooden rattlings, feeling their fibers give slightly under pressure. Sails stretched above, catching wind and shifting subtly, teaching awareness of even the softest gust. Each ascent was careful, deliberate, synchronized with the gentle motion of the hull below. From the crow's nest, the horizon seemed endless, a seamless meeting of sky and water that invited the mind to drift freely, to merge with the pulse of the sea. Beneath deck, treasure and supplies shifted with the swell. Chests pressed gently against one another, their contents whispering in faint metallic echoes. The air was warm, carrying the scent of salt, timber, and faint oils from ropes and sails. Every creak, thump, or subtle shift became a note in the endless symphony of the ship, a lullaby that enveloped crew and cargo alike. Even when the waves rose slightly, the ship absorbed the pressure in her timbers, rising and falling with measured grace. On some days, the ocean appeared to stretch without end. Distant clouds drifted lazily across the sky, sometimes dimming the sun, sometimes allowing it to cast long golden shafts across the water. Birds occasionally appeared on the horizon, wings glinting in sunlight, dipping and gliding before vanishing into the distance. The crew watched quietly, noting the slow shifts of cloud and light, the subtle change in wind and swell, absorbing the soft patterns into the rhythm of their own breathing and movement. Small storms sometimes gathered far beyond the horizon, invisible except for the faint darkening of clouds or the slight shift of wind. Even then, the crew felt no urgency. They adjusted lines, moved chests slightly to accommodate shifts, and let the ship flex and breathe with the swell. Every creak of timber, every whisper of rope, every rolling wave became part of the hypnotic pattern that guided their days. The ship responded to each movement, absorbing weight and pressure, rising and falling in perfect rhythm with ocean and sky. Night brought its own hypnotic quality. The moon rose slowly, painting the deck and sails in silver light, reflecting faintly on the gentle swell of the sea. Lanterns glowed softly along the rails, casting muted light across polished timber. Crew moved quietly, tending fires, adjusting lines, checking the hold, all in measured steps that blended seamlessly with the ship's rocking. Below deck, treasure and supplies shifted lightly, as if breathing with the vessel, echoing softly with each sway. Sometimes, in the silence of night, the ship's motion became a deeper, slower rhythm. Waves rose and fell with deliberate cadence. The hull flexed gently, ropes hummed under tension, and timbers sighed in soft agreement. The crew, fully attuned to these motions, moved without need for thought, their bodies and minds fully aligned with the vessel. Even their breathing matched the rise and fall of waves, inhaling as the ship lifted, exhaling as it descended, merging fully with the hypnotic pulse of sea and wind. Over the weeks, the Flor de la Mar seemed to take on its own life. She responded not just to wind and waves, but to the touch and rhythm of those aboard. Crew and vessel became one, moving in subtle, continuous synchrony. The sway of the hull beneath their feet, the soft creak of timber, the gentle pull of ropes, the hum of sails in the windall, merged into a slow, unbroken lullaby. Even the smallest adjustments, the tilt of a mast, a shift in a chest below, the slight rise of a wave, were absorbed and integrated seamlessly into the pattern. Meals, tasks, rest, and reflection became one long meditation, punctuated only by the subtle rhythm of sea and sky. Crew spent hours scrubbing deck, adjusting sails, checking the cargo hold, or climbing the rigging to watch the horizon. Each action repeated in measured cadence, reinforcing the hypnotic pulse of life aboard the ship. Time became unimportant, measured only by sun, moon, and the endless motion of waves. Occasionally, a distant sound would interrupt the rhythm, a gull calling far above, a whale breaking the surface of the water, the faint clink of metal in a chest butt. Each was absorbed into the continuous lullaby. Even the approach of distant islands, or faint changes in wind or current passed gently, their presence acknowledged but unhurried. The ship, crew, and sea moved together in perfect balance, a continuous meditation in motion, sound, and light. The days grew long, sun rising and setting in quiet arcs, clouds drifting lazily, waves rolling endlessly. The ship's pulse, steady and hypnotic, carried all aboard deeper into calm awareness. Sailors moved slowly, deliberately, in quiet attention, hands gliding along ropes and timber, steps aligned with the rise and fall of the deck. Each breath matched the gentle swell, inhaling as the ship lifted, exhaling as it descended, the rhythm extending into every thought, every movement, every heartbeat. Storms sometimes whispered on the horizon, clouds darkening subtly, wind shifting gently. Even these were absorbed into the vessel's calm rhythm. The crew adjusted sails and cargo with care, allowing the ship to flex and move in harmony with the swell. Timber groaned softly, ropes hummed, and the hull rose and fell with hypnotic inevitability. The ship, fully alive in every fiber, carried its passengers through each subtle challenge with quiet grace. At night, the Flor de la Mar became a moving sanctuary. The moonlight shimmered on water, lanterns cast soft reflections across deck, and waves rocked the hull in slow, endless repetition. Below deck, treasure and supplies shifted slightly with each swell, echoing softly in rhythm with the ship. The crew lay in quiet contemplation, listening to the lullaby of wind, water, and timber, feeling themselves merge with the motion of vessel and ocean. Weeks turned into months. The voyage stretched endlessly, a seamless meditation in motion, wind, sun, moon, and water. The horizon remained vast, unbroken, infinite. Clouds drifted lazily. Stars emerged and shifted across night skies, and the soft pulse of the ship carried all aboard in hypnotic unity. Every creak, every sigh, every whisper of wind or rope became a note in the endless symphony of the Flor de la Mar. Even small, gentle events, like distant pods of dolphins breaking the surface, the glitter of sunlight on spray, a bird landing briefly on deck, were absorbed into the calm rhythm. They passed softly, unobtrusively, reinforcing the hypnotic sway of vessel and crew. Everything was slow, deliberate, continuous. Everything merged: the ship, the crew, the treasure, the waves, the wind, the horizon. The gentle swell of the ocean continued day after day, a steady pulse beneath the hull that seemed to resonate with the heartbeat of every sailor aboard. Hands glided along ropes, knots were checked and rechecked, sails adjusted with meticulous care, and each minor movement was absorbed into the hypnotic rhythm of the vessel. Even the sound of boots brushing across deck echoed softly, harmonizing with the sway of the ship and the lap of water against timber. Every step, every touch, every breath became part of the continuous lullaby of sea and sail. Meals aboard the ship were slow and deliberate, as much a part of the meditation as climbing the rigging or tending sails. The scent of bread, salted meat, and dried fruits mingled with the omnipresent aroma of salt and timber, creating a grounded, comforting presence. Each clink of bowls and utensils was soft and measured. Conversation was quiet, almost whispered, and fell into natural pauses that allowed the surrounding sounds of wind, waves, and rope to carry the rhythm of life. Even laughter seemed to drift and dissolve into the ambient hum of the ship, like distant bells echoing in a calm bay. The rigging became a place of stillness and observation. Hands gripped taut ropes, feeling the fibers respond. The wood beneath fingers smooth yet alive with tension. Sails shifted gently above, catching every whisper of wind, guiding the ship without force, only subtle adjustment. From the crow's nest, the horizon stretched infinitely, a seamless expanse of muted blues and soft grays, inviting the mind to wander freely, to fold itself into the endless rhythm of ocean and sky. Sailors often paused at these heights, letting the motion of the vessel and the sound of the waves lull them into quiet contemplation. Below deck, the treasure and supplies pressed lightly against one another. Gold, silver, and chests of spices shifted softly with the swell, creating faint metallic echoes that merged with the creak of timbers. The warmth of the enclosed space, combined with the gentle rocking of the hold, made the cargo itself seem alive, breathing in the rhythm of the ship. Even the faintest shift in weight became a note in the continuous symphony of life aboard the Flor de la Mar. The first distant storms began to make their presence known weeks into the voyage. Clouds gathered slowly on the horizon, subtle darkening that the crew noticed with quiet attention. There was no urgency, no alarm. The storm was far, its whispers traveling on the wind. Sails were checked, lines adjusted, and the ship responded naturally to the swell and shift of the sea. Waves rose gently, then fell, the hull flexing with measured grace. Timber groaned softly, ropes hummed with tension, and the crew moved in quiet harmony with the rhythm of ocean and vessel. Evenings were a continuous meditation. Lanterns glowed softly across the deck, casting muted reflections across polished timber. Moonlight shimmered on the water, silver ribbons stretching and folding across gentle swells. Crew moved quietly, performing minor tasks or simply observing the motion of the ship, allowing themselves to be carried in the rhythm of wave and wind. Below deck, chests shifted slightly, the metal contents whispering faintly, echoing the sway of hull and water. Each sound, each subtle vibration, each sigh of the ship became a note in a soft, unbroken lullaby. Days blended into nights, and weeks rolled into months. The crew learned to move in seamless synchrony with the ship. Each step, each breath, each adjustment of a line perfectly attuned to the slow, deep pulse of the ocean. Life became a rhythm, a continuous dance between human effort and the vast, powerful sea. The horizon remained an unbroken circle, a canvas of infinite blue that met the sky in a soft, hazy line. Clouds drifted lazily, great white ships in their own right, sailing a silent, atmospheric ocean. The wind whispered across the sails, a constant, gentle companion. The ropes, taut with purpose, hummed a soft, low tune, a song of tension and release. The hull rose and fell with a gentle, hypnotic inevitability, a cradle rocked by the hand of the sea itself. Even the smallest events, the occasional sighting of distant seabirds or a piece of floating debris, became part of this moving meditation. They were not distractions, but affirmations of the journey, absorbed into the vast continuity of motion, sound, and reflection. The world outside the ship seemed to fade, replaced by this immediate sensory reality. The creak of timber, the sigh of the wind, the soft splash of water against the hulls were the new languages of existence. Each member of the crew, from the captain on the quarterdeck to the cook in the galley, became a part of this living, breathing entity, their individual consciousness merging with the collective spirit of the voyage. The ship, the Flor de la Mar, seemed almost sentient in its slow, deliberate navigation. Her sails shifted, as if anticipating the slightest changes in the wind, catching every whisper of a breeze to maintain her steady course. The timber of her frame flexed with a natural grace, absorbing the immense pressures and stresses of the open ocean, not with rigid resistance, but with a supple, yielding strength. The crew moved like extensions of the vessel itself, their hands calloused and sure, and their feet, steady on the swaying deck, flowed in perfect harmony with the ship's pulse. Their eyes, scanning the horizon, were the ship's own, ever watchful and aware. Every sound became a note in a grand, unending symphony. Every creak of the mast, every gentle sigh from the timbers, every soft thump of cargo shifting in the hold was a part of the continuous rhythm. This symphony carried all aboard, deeper into a state of calm awareness, a mindfulness born not of stillness, but of constant, harmonious motion. Life aboard the Flor de la Mar was a meditation in motion, a continuous lullaby sung by the wind, the wood, the ropes, the water, and the quiet, steady beat of human breath. There was a profound peace in this unity, a sense of belonging to something far greater than oneself. At night, the ocean transformed into a silvered expanse under the moon. The water, dark and mysterious by day, now shimmered with a soft, ethereal light, each wave crest tipped with liquid silver. Lanterns glimmered across the deck, casting a gentle, warm light on the polished wood and the taut, intricate network of ropes. The crew on watch moved slowly, their steps deliberate and quiet, their hands gliding along the familiar contours of railings, their fingers adjusting lines with a careful, practiced attention that bordered on reverence. The great swell of the ocean carried the ship in a hypnotic rhythm, a soft, unbroken motion that seemed to echo in every heartbeat, lulling the world into a state of serene slumber. Even below deck, in the silent, fragrant dark of the hold, the treasure and supplies seemed to move with a quiet acknowledgement of the vessel's pulse. Every subtle shift of a gold coin in a chest, every gentle slide of a barrel was a whisper that harmonized with the larger sounds of the ship. The groan of timber, the song of the wind in the rigging, the endless wash of the waves all were part of a single, unified being. The separation between object and environment, between the animate and inanimate, dissolved in this rhythmic embrace. The ship and its contents were one, moving together through the moonlit sea. Occasionally, the endless continuity would be punctuated by a fleeting, beautiful interruption. The distant flash of a pod of dolphins would break the surface, their sleek bodies glinting in the sunlight as they curved gracefully through the swells, a joyful, transient spectacle before they disappeared back into the deep blue horizon. A lone seabird might glide across the sky, its wings arcing in soft, silent grace against the vast canvas of the heavens, before it, too, vanished from sight. But even these small, beautiful interruptions became part of the continuous meditation. They were not breaks in the rhythm, but variations on the theme, absorbed seamlessly into the vast, flowing pattern of life aboard. The vessel, the crew, the treasure, and the ocean existed as one single entity, moving together in a hypnotic, endless motion that felt eternal. Over time, storms began to gather on the far horizon. They were not violent, sudden tempests, but insistent, slow-building presences. The waves rose slightly higher, their rhythm deepening. The clouds gathered above in muted, dramatic tones of gray and purple. The Flor flexed in response to this change in the ocean's mood. Her sails were adjusted, her lines tightened, her timbers groaning softly, a sound that was both protest and acceptance. The crew moved in their calm, practiced synchronization, their movements a well-rehearsed ballet of preparation. Chests were secured below deck, extra knots were tied, sails were reefed and aligned to meet the coming wind. Every subtle motion, both of the ship and of the crew, was absorbed into the long, continuous rhythm of the sea. The cadence of the journey simply changed its tempo. The waves rose and fell in a deeper, more powerful hypnotic cadence. The wind whispered no more, but sang a stronger, more resonant song through the rigging. The ropes hummed with a greater tension, and the timber sighed under a gentle, insistent strain. Yet the sense of harmony remained. Each breath, each heartbeat, each step still merged into the continuous lullaby of wind, wave, timber, and human awareness, a testament to the crew's trust in their ship and in each other. At night, when the storm was a faint, flashing presence on the distant horizon, the crew rested quietly. Lanterns cast a muted, gentle light, creating small islands of warmth and safety. On the dark deck, the water lapped softly against the hull, a familiar, comforting sound. The sails creaked gently in the building breeze. Through it all, the ship's pulse was constant, hypnotic, unbroken. Thoughts drifted slowly, carried by the motion and the sound, merging fully with the ship's powerful rhythm. In this state of deep connection, there was no room for fear. Each sway of the deck, each subtle shift of weight in the hold, each whisper of a rope became part of the hypnotic meditation, grounding both body and mind in a profound and unshakable serenity. The months passed seamlessly and without clear markers. The sun rose and set with an unchanging, majestic rhythm. Clouds drifted, stars appeared and shifted across the night sky, and the waves rolled endlessly toward a horizon that never came closer. The crew moved as one with the ship, their daily tasks a ritual that connected them to the vessel and the sea. They adjusted sails, scrubbed the deck until the wood shone, checked the precious cargo, climbed the towering rigging to scan the ocean, and observed the vast, empty horizon. The ship absorbed all of it, the labor, the quiet contemplation, the shared existence. She flexed, she breathed, she moved in perfect concert with the wind, the swell, and the human rhythm of her crew. Every sound, every motion, every sight became part of the endless lullaby that carried all aboard into a state of deep, continuous awareness. Below deck, the immense weight of the treasure pressed softly into the ship's frame. The timbers shifted gently around it, cradling it. Ropes hummed their constant tune, and sails flapped in a measured, predictable rhythm. The pulse of the vessel, continuous and hypnotic, guided every movement, every breath, every thought. Even the rare sight of distant islands or the faint shadow of a reef on the horizon were absorbed with a quiet, calm attention. There was no urgency, no excitement, just a small, new note in the continuous, ancient song of the ship and the sea. The horizon remained vast, infinite, and unbroken. And the Flor de la Mar carried all aboard gently, rhythmically, endlessly, deeper and deeper into the profound meditation of her voyage. A subtle change arrived in the late afternoon, almost imperceptible at first. The wind shifted, brushing against sails with a new urgency, carrying the faint scent of rain from clouds gathering far to the east. The horizon darkened slightly, soft shadows stretching across the waves. The Flor de la Mar responded naturally, her hull rising and falling with the swell. Sails adjusted gently, lines humming softly under measured tension. The crew noticed quietly, moving with calm attentiveness, hands gliding along ropes, eyes scanning the horizon. There was no panic, only awareness, a slow acknowledgement that the ocean was preparing a new rhythm. The waves began to rise, ever so slightly, cresting and falling in hypnotic repetition. Timber flexed, creaking softly, a gentle musical accompaniment to the shifting wind. Sailors adjusted sails and cargo with deliberate care, each motion part of the continuous symphony of ship and sea. Even below deck, treasure shifted lightly in rhythm with the swell, creating soft metallic echoes that blended seamlessly with the hum of ropes and the sigh of the hull. The storm approached not with force, but with a slow, deliberate presence, like a whisper from the ocean itself. Rain arrived as a soft drizzle, touching the deck lightly, painting timber with tiny, glittering droplets. Sailors moved with unhurried purpose, securing lines, adjusting sails, feeling the gentle pulse of wind and water. Every movement was synchronized with the natural rhythm of the vessel, each breath measured and calm. The storm, though present, became part of the meditative cadence, a subtle variation in the endless pattern of wind, wave, timber, and human attention. Lightning flashed in the distance, faint and distant, illuminating clouds that drifted lazily across the horizon. Thunder rumbled softly, a low vibration that echoed across the water and through the hull. The crew observed quietly, taking note of the changing sky, feeling the swell beneath their feet, and absorbing the sounds into the continuous lullaby of the ship. Even the mild storm became hypnotic, a variation in the ongoing rhythm of the Flor de la Mar, teaching awareness, patience, and calm presence. Night fell with gentle inevitability. Moonlight filtered through clouds, casting a soft silver glow across the waves and deck. Lanterns glimmered along the rails, their light reflecting on wet timber, ropes, and sails. Crew moved in measured steps, tending lines, checking cargo, climbing, rigging briefly to observe the horizon, or simply standing quietly and feeling the pulse of the ship beneath their feet. Below deck, treasure shifted in time with the swell, a soft metallic whisper joining the symphony of wind, water, and timber. The ocean rocked the vessel in steady, continuous motion. Waves rose and fell. Wind whispered in rigging. Ropes hummed, timber flexed, and the ship breathed softly with the pulse of the sea. Crew and vessel were one. Every step, every touch, every thought aligned with the hypnotic rhythm. Even moments of reflection became meditative. A glance at the horizon, the subtle shimmer of moonlight on waves. The quiet understanding that the ship and crew were moving together through endless space and time. In these quiet hours, the ocean seemed infinite. The swell carried the Flor de la Mar gently, endlessly. A cradle in which all aboard were suspended. Stars emerged above, faint glimmers mirrored in the water below. The scent of salt, the feel of timber beneath hands. The soft touch of mist from the gentle rainfall became part of the enveloping lullaby. The crew layor stood quietly, breathing in sync with the rise and fall of the hull, letting themselves drift into calm awareness, into the meditative embrace of ship and ocean. The mild storm gradually passed, leaving behind a calm, reflective silence. The wind softened, waves returned to their gentle, steady rhythm, and the Flor de la Mar floated eastward, carrying crew, treasure, and vessel in perfect harmony. The lullaby of the sea continued, uninterrupted, guiding minds and bodies into deep relaxation. Each creak of timber, whisper of rope, and lap of water reinforced the hypnotic flow, folding every moment, every movement, and every thought into a continuous meditation of ship, ocean, and sky. As the first part of the voyage drew to a close, the crew settled into their routines, fully synchronized with the pulse of the ship. The horizon remained infinite, unbroken, and full of possibility. Clouds drifted lazily. The moon cast a soft silver light. Waves rose and fell with gentle inevitability. All was calm, all was measured, and all was continuous. The Flor de la Mar had become more than a vessel. She was a living presence, a moving sanctuary, a hypnotic conduit between the vastness of the ocean and the minds of those aboard. And in that quiet, steady motion, the crew and treasure, sails and timber, wind and wave, merged into one seamless, unbroken lullaby. The Flor de la Mar continued her eastward journey, carrying all aboard into the endless, gentle rhythm of sea and sky, guiding them deeper into meditative awareness, into hypnotic calm, and into the serene embrace of the ocean's vast, unending expanse. Part 2. Horizons Beyond the Horizon. The Flor de la Mar continued her steady eastward journey, gliding gracefully across an endless expanse of water. The gentle swell rose and fell beneath her hull, a soft, unbroken pulse that seemed to echo the rhythm of every heartbeat aboard. Sailors moved quietly, hands gliding along ropes, eyes scanning the horizon, steps measured and deliberate. The wind whispered across the sails in continuous, soothing murmurs, and the faint creak of timber harmonized with the subtle lap of water against the hull. Every sound, every movement, every sway became part of the meditative flow of life at sea. Days at this stage of the voyage settled into a deep, continuous rhythm. Meals were simple, prepared slowly, shared quietly. Each clink of bowls and utensils blending into the surrounding symphony of wind, water, and timber. Crew movements were deliberate, synchronized with the sway of deck and hull, each breath aligning with the rise and fall of waves. Even the small, mundane tasks suggesting a line, tightening a knot, checking a chest below deck took on a hypnotic quality, part of a gentle, unbroken meditation that carried everyone forward. The horizon stretched endlessly, a pale gradient where sky and water met, shifting softly with the rising sun, the wandering clouds, and the changing tides. From the crow's nest, a sailor could see waves stretch to infinity, undulating in gentle, hypnotic cadence. Sometimes, distant shapes appeared on the horizon, a pod of dolphins gliding silently, a lone seabird hovering above the water, the faint outline of an island too far to approach. These subtle movements were absorbed into the rhythm of the voyage, small variations in the continuous lullaby of sea and sky. Beneath deck, treasure pressed softly against one another. Chests shifted slightly with the swell, their contents murmuring faint metallic echoes. The air was warm and heavy, carrying the smell of salt, timber, and faint oil from the ropes above. Every thump, every subtle scrape, every whisper of weight sliding became a note in the long hypnotic song of the ship, reinforcing the deep awareness of vessel and ocean. The crew walked above, unconsciously attuned to these small vibrations. Their movements harmonized with the gentle pulse beneath them. Sometimes the wind would shift unexpectedly, a gentle gust rippling through sails, a subtle change in direction. Sailors adjusted quickly but calmly, moving with precise care, their hands brushing along familiar ropes, their eyes tracking the soft movements of the horizon. Timber groaned softly, ropes hummed faintly, and the hull rose and fell with measured grace. Even these minor changes became part of the meditation, a reminder that the sea was alive, responsive and ever-changing, yet gentle in its teaching. Clouds rolled lazily across the sky, their shadows moving slowly over waves and deck. Light shifted subtly, painting the ship in soft washes of gold, silver, and pale gray. Sunlight glinted off polished timber and ropes, reflecting briefly on the water before dissolving into muted glimmers. The crew moved with awareness, noting shifts in light and color, the rise of swells, the direction of wind, all as part of the unbroken, continuous rhythm of the voyage. Occasionally, faint storms appeared on the distant horizon, low, dark clouds that promised change but did not yet demand action. Sailors watched quietly, hands gliding along lines, minds observing the subtle signs, the darkening of clouds, the slight increase in swell, the hush in wind patterns. These moments were absorbed as part of the hypnotic journey, gentle variations in the long, continuous rhythm of waves, wind, timber, and human presence. The Flor de la Mar moved with grace, her timbers flexing, her sails catching every whisper of air, her ropes humming gently with tension. Evenings brought a deeper, more serene meditation. Lanterns flickered softly along the rails, casting gentle reflections across deck and rigging. The moon rose slowly, painting silver stripes across waves and sails. Crew moved quietly, adjusting lines or standing in still observation, their movements deliberate, their breathing aligned with the rise and fall of the hull. Below deck, treasure shifted gently, the soft metallic echoes joining the ambient hum of the vessel, a lullaby that carried through the entire ship. Night deepened the hypnotic immersion. The sea appeared infinite, stretching under starlight that glimmered faintly across the gentle waves. Sailors leaned against rails, listened to the pulse of the hull, and felt the rhythm of ocean and timber, a slow, deliberate, continuous cycle. The scent of salt and timber, the touch of cool night air against skin. The subtle vibrations through deck and cargo wall combined into a seamless sensory meditation. Even the faint murmur of distant waves breaking on reefs or unseen shores became part of the continuous lullaby. Weeks blended into months as the ship moved farther east. Life aboard remained meditative and rhythmic, adjusting sails, checking ropes, scrubbing timber, climbing, rigging, observing horizon, tending cargo. Time became unimportant, measured only by sun, moon, wind, and wave. The ship's pulse guided every movement, every breath, every thought, drawing the crew deeper into awareness of vessel and sea, into harmony with the hypnotic, unbroken rhythm of the ocean. The mild storms that arrived were absorbed into the meditative flow. Rain fell gently, not violently, soft sheets, gliding over sails and deck. The scent of wet timber and salt filling the air. Ropes hummed under tension, timber flexed with quiet strength, sails shifted and pulsed with the wind. Crew moved deliberately, adjusting lines, securing cargo, feeling the pulse of the ship beneath their feet. The storm became another note in the symphony, a gentle crescendo and fade, a soft reminder of the ocean's constant presence and influence. Days turned into nights, nights into days, endlessly as the Flor de la Mar moved eastward. Sunlight glimmered on waves, moonlight shimmered across swells, stars rotated slowly above. Sailors moved with measured steps, hands brushing along ropes and timbers, observing the faint shifts in light, wind, and water. Below deck, treasure shifted slightly with each swell, creating soft metallic echoes that merged with the creak of timber and hum of ropes. The entire vessel existed as one entity, alive in every fiber, every movement, every sound, even the small moments floating debris, passing seabirds. Distant flashes of dolphin fins breaking the water's surface were absorbed without disruption, woven into the continuous hypnotic pattern. Life aboard the Flor de la Mar was entirely rhythmic, every detail noted subtly, every movement synchronized, every sound incorporated. The horizon remained infinite, the waves unbroken, the ship steady and graceful, guiding crew and cargo in seamless harmony. At night, under the full glow of moon and stars, the gentle pulse of the ship deepened. Waves rose and fell with hypnotic regularity. Wind whispered across rigging. Timber flexed, ropes hummed. Lanterns glimmered. Treasure shifted. Crew lay or stood quietly, breathing in time with the rise and fall of deck, feeling each heartbeat align with vessel and ocean. Even thoughts became rhythmic, absorbed into the unbroken lullaby, a meditation in motion, wind, wave, and wood. The distant horizon offered glimpses of change. Clouds drifting lazily, subtle shifts in light, faint whispers of wind, signaling currents and unseen weather. Each variation was observed and absorbed calmly. No urgency present, only gentle attention. A continued awareness of the hypnotic continuity of sea and vessel. Even the anticipation of distant storms became a part of meditation. A note in the song, a ripple in the endless flow, acknowledged but unhurried. And so the Flor de la Mar sailed, eastward endlessly, carrying crew, treasure, timber, and sails into infinite calm. Waves rose and fell. The hull flexed ropes. Hum's sails shifted. Lanterns glowed. Stars shimmered, and the wind whispered softly across the water. The ship, crew, and ocean existed as one entity, moving in continuous rhythm, immersed in slow, unbroken meditation. Every step, every breath, every glance was part of the hypnotic, endless lullaby of life aboard the Flor de la Mar. A seamless journey into calm, serenity, and hypnotic awareness. Part 3. Distant storms and the pulse of the ship. The Flor de la Mar moved steadily across the endless expanse of ocean, her dark timber hull gliding through water that shimmered in the sunlight, shifting from deep blue to soft aquamarine as the waves rose and fell in gentle rhythm. The swell carried her as though she were a living creature, each lift and fall harmonizing with the pulse of sailor's breath and heartbeat. Every creak of timber, every sigh of rope, every flutter of canvas, became part of the continuous music of life aboard a soft, unbroken lullaby that carried the mind toward calmness, serenity, and deep awareness. The crew had settled into routines that were both deliberate and hypnotic. Mornings began with careful checks of lines and sails, hands brushing along familiar ropes, feeling the fibers respond. Knots tested and retied as the ship flexed beneath them. Meals were prepared slowly, each sound the chopping of dried meat, the clinking of bowls absorbed into the rhythmic chorus of water, lapping sails, flapping gently, and timbers flexing. Even the smallest tasks were part of a meditative cycle, scrubbing the deck, adjusting cargo, climbing the rigging to observe distant horizons, or simply standing still, breathing in the pulse of the ship and sea. From the crow's nest, the horizon appeared infinite. Waves undulated endlessly, glittering in sunlight that shifted as the day progressed, casting reflections across deck and rigging. Clouds drifted lazily above, sometimes masking the sun, sometimes allowing beams of light to spill across sails and timber. Sailors observed these changes with quiet attention, noting the direction of wind, the subtleties of cloud movement, the faint glint of sunlight on distant water. Each observation was absorbed into the ongoing meditation of life aboard, integrated into the hypnotic rhythm of motion, sound, and sensation. Below deck, treasure shifted with the gentle sway, chests pressing softly against one another, coins whispering faint metallic echoes. The smell of timber, salt, and faint oil from ropes filled the air, grounding the senses, reminding sailors of the delicate balance of their journey. Every subtle thump, every faint scrape of metal against wood, every creak of timber became part of the vessel's pulse, a continuous undercurrent reinforcing the hypnotic connection between ship, crew, and sea. Days passed in a seamless, meditative flow. The sun rose and set in slow arcs, painting the ocean with reflections that shifted with the passage of time. Sailors climbed, scrubbed, adjusted, observed, and rested in continuous rhythm, their steps and breathing aligning with the sway of hull and the pulse of waves. Even the occasional interruption, a pod of dolphins breaking the water's surface, a distant seabird tracing arcs against clouds, was absorbed into the continuous pattern, acknowledged without haste or disruption. One evening, a subtle shift in the wind and clouds signaled the approach of distant storms. They were far enough to be only hints of what might come, but close enough to alter the rhythm of the ship. Sailors noted the darkening on the horizon, the faintly increased swell, the whisper of wind through rigging. Lines were checked, sails adjusted, and cargo observed to ensure balance. The ship responded naturally to these subtle changes, timber flexing, ropes humming, sails fluttering, in a hypnotic dialogue with the crew who moved in quiet, synchronized attention. The wind began to pick up slightly, brushing sails with a soft insistence, lifting spray off the crests of waves. The Flor rose and fell on the swell, tilting gently, adjusting her weight with graceful inevitability. Crew moved deliberately, each motion aligned with the ship's pulse, tightening a line here, shifting a chest there, climbing the rigging to check the horizon. All without haste, all absorbed into the continuous rhythm of the vessel. Even the subtle threat of storm was absorbed as part of the meditation, teaching patience, awareness, and calm presence. As night fell, the distant storms were marked by soft flashes of lightning, faint and slow, illuminating the horizon with brief silver light. The sound of thunder rolled far off, a low vibration that seemed to resonate in the very timbers of the hull. The crew observed quietly, breathing in sync with the swell, hands gliding along ropes and railings, aware of every subtle shift. Even the storm's presence, though distant, became a part of the hypnotic rhythm of the voyage, a soft variation in the ongoing symphony of wind, water, timber, and human awareness. Lanterns glowed along deck and rails, casting warm reflections on polished wood and taut sails. The moon rose above the horizon, silvering the gentle swell and reflecting faintly on the ropes and timbers. Crew moved slowly, deliberately, adjusting lines, observing the shift of clouds, or simply standing in quiet meditation, feeling the pulse of the vessel beneath their feet. Below deck, treasure shifted softly, echoing faint metallic whispers that harmonized with the creak of hull and hum of ropes. Every sound and motion reinforced the hypnotic, unbroken lullaby of the ship and ocean. Days merged seamlessly into nights. The swell rose and fell. The wind whispered across sails. Ropes hummed, timber flexed, and the Flor de la Mar continued her eastward journey, steady and graceful. The crew's bond with the vessel deepened. They moved as extensions of her timbers and lines. Their breath and heartbeat synchronized with the rise and fall of deck and wave. Even small moments, the glint of sunlight on spray, the distant fin of a dolphin, the arc of a seabird across sky were absorbed, merged, and carried gently in the long, continuous rhythm of life aboard. A mild storm finally reached them, not violent, but persistent. Rain fell in soft sheets, slicking the deck and polishing timber with its gentle touch. Sails flapped in measured pulses. Ropes hummed under steady tension. Timber flexed gently with the swell. Crew moved in synchronized care, securing lines, adjusting sails, shifting treasure for balance, observing the subtle rhythm of storm and ship. Each sound, the patter of rain, the hiss of wind, the sigh of timber, the gentle metallic echo below deck merged into the hypnotic symphony, a soft crescendo and fade within the unbroken meditation of life aboard the Flor de la Mar. Night deepened the effect of the storm. Lanterns glowed softly, mist rising from rain-dappled sails. The ocean pulsed continuously beneath the hull, waves rolling with gentle inevitability, wind whispering across rigging, ropes vibrating in soft harmony. Crew rested in the rhythm, lying or leaning against deck, breathing in sync with the motion of hull and swell. Thoughts and awareness merged with the continuous lullaby. Every creak, every sigh, every touch of water or wind became part of the endless, hypnotic flow. The storm gradually receded, leaving behind a calm, reflective sea. The deck was slick and shining, the air cool and fragrant with salt and rain. Timber flexed gently as the hull resumed its smooth, unbroken rise and fall on the returning swell. Sails hung softly in the renewed breeze. Ropes hummed faintly. Treasure settled with muted metallic echoes below deck. The horizon stretched infinitely, cloud shadows drifting slowly. The moon reflected on gentle waves. Stars mirrored faintly in silvered swells. And so, life aboard the Flor de la Mar continued. Wind, water, timber, rope, sail, crew, and treasure moving in seamless synchronization. Every breath, every glance, every heartbeat became part of the hypnotic rhythm, the endless lullaby of vessel and sea. The crew felt deeply entwined with the ship, aware of her pulse, her movement, her subtle communication. Even the distant storms, the shift of clouds, the swell of waves, became gentle teachers, guiding attention, patience, and calm presence. As Part 3 drew to its close, the Flor de la Mar sailed eastward through endless silvered waves, carrying her crew and treasure in continuous, gentle rhythm. The sun rose and set in soft arcs, clouds drifted lazily, the wind whispered across sails, timber flexed, ropes hummed. The crew, fully attuned, moved in quiet synchronization with the pulse of hull and ocean, absorbed in the unbroken, hypnotic lullaby that would guide them further into their journey. Deeper into the vast, serene expanse of the ocean. Part 4. Distant ports and the gentle pull of curiosity. The Flor de la Mar glided across the horizon, her hull cutting steadily through waves that shimmered in the soft sunlight, painting the sea in endless ribbons of blue and silver. Every rise and fall of the swell sent subtle vibrations through timber and deck, echoing through ropes and sails, carrying a pulse that seemed to synchronize with every breath aboard. Crew and vessel moved together in quiet harmony, hands gliding along familiar ropes, feet adjusting to the gentle sway, eyes tracing the subtle shifts of the horizon. Life aboard continued in a meditative rhythm. Each morning began with the soft creaks of timber as the hull flexed in the rise of the swell, sails catching the faintest hint of wind. Sailors moved deliberately, adjusting lines, checking cargo, climbing, rigging, observing the endless horizon, all absorbed in the continuous lullaby of water, wind, and wood. Meals were shared quietly, each sound, the clink of bowls, the scrape of utensils, the soft shuffle of feet across the deck absorbed into the gentle symphony of ship and sea. The scent of salt and timber permeated the air, mingling with faint oils from the ropes and the warmer aroma of pressed cargo below deck. Treasure shifted softly, metal and wood murmuring faintly in rhythm with the hull and swell, echoing the hypnotic pulse of the vessel. Each subtle thump, each metallic whisper, each creak of timber became part of a continuous lullaby, carrying crew and ship into a meditative awareness of their shared journey. As the voyage continued eastward, distant shapes began to appear along the horizon. Faint outlines of islands rose in the haze, their cliffs and forests softened by distance and mist. Sailors observed with quiet attention, eyes tracing the gradual approach, noting the gentle shift in wind patterns, the subtle rise of the swell, the whisper of currents. The ship responded to these changes. Sails adjusted, timber flexed, ropes hummed, and the vessel seemed almost to lean forward, eager to reach the unseen shores ahead. The subtle excitement of approaching ports infused the crew with gentle anticipation. Steps were still measured, movements deliberate, but there was a quiet attentiveness to every detail. The direction of the wind, the glint of sunlight on distant cliffs, the occasional flash of white seabirds rising and falling with the waves. Even this anticipation became hypnotic, folded into the continuous meditation of life aboard the Flor de la Mar. Every rise and fall of the deck, every creak of timber, every shift in cargo reinforced the gentle, unbroken rhythm of the voyage. Clouds drifted lazily across the sky, their shadows rippling softly over the water. Sunlight shifted gradually, painting the ship in golden hues in the morning, soft silver at midday, and gentle pink and orange at dusk. Each subtle change was observed quietly, absorbed into the hypnotic rhythm. Sailors climbed the rigging, feeling the sway of the ship beneath their hands and feet, noting the texture of ropes, the flex of sails, and the pulse of timber. From these heights, the horizon appeared infinite, a seamless meeting of sea and sky, drawing the mind into a quiet, continuous awareness of motion and time. Below deck, treasure and supplies shifted softly with each swell. Chests pressed against one another, faint metallic echoes harmonizing with the creak of the hull and the hum of ropes. The air was warm, dense with the scent of timber, salt, and oils from the rope. Each subtle vibration, each whisper of movement, became part of the vessel's pulse, reinforcing the hypnotic connection between ship, crew, and sea. Even the faint movement of a chest below, unnoticed by most, became a note in the ongoing symphony of life aboard. Gentle storms began to sweep across the horizon, distant but visible. Clouds darkened softly, carrying the faint scent of rain, and the wind shifted slightly, brushing sails with tender insistence. The crew moved quietly, checking lines, adjusting sails, ensuring cargo was secure. Timber groaned softly, ropes hummed under tension, and the hull flexed gracefully with the swell. Every motion was deliberate, each movement synchronized with the pulse of the ship, and every subtle change in the environment was absorbed into the meditative flow of life. Aboard, night, lanterns glowed softly, casting warm light on polished timber and taut sails. The moon rose slowly, silvering the gentle swell, reflecting on ropes and timber. The crew moved in quiet synchronization with the rhythm of the ship, adjusting lines, observing clouds, climbing rigging to glimpse the horizon. Below deck, the treasure shifted softly, its metallic echoes blending with the gentle hum of wind, water, and timber. Every sound and motion reinforced the hypnotic lullaby of the vessel, a soft and unbroken melody of sea and sail. The nights were filled with deep reflection. Sailors watched the moonlight glinting across the waves, tracing faint paths of silver stretching toward the horizon. The gentle sway of the deck and hull guided their breath, rising with each swell, falling with each dip. Even the faint rustle of ropes, the soft creak of timber, and the whisper of water against the hull became part of the continuous soothing rhythm. Thoughts and awareness were absorbed fully into the movement of the vessel, the pulse of the ocean, and the soft illumination of distant stars. The crew's bond with the ship deepened. Hands became extensions of rigging and timber, steps in tune with the rise and fall of the deck, eyes aligned with the subtle rhythms of wind and wave. Every creak, every sigh, every metallic whisper from below deck became a part of the hypnotic, continuous meditation. Even the anticipation of distant ports of land unseen, of possibilities ahead, was absorbed as part of the gentle rhythm. A soft tension folded into the continuous pulse of vessel and sea. Gentle storms occasionally approached, bringing soft rain that slicked the deck and polished the timber. Sails pulsed with subtle movement, ropes hummed under tension, and the timber flexed with the swell. The crew moved deliberately, in quiet synchrony, adjusting lines, shifting cargo, observing the continuous rhythm. The storm became another note in the long, unbroken symphony, a gentle variation in the hypnotic melody of life aboard, reinforcing awareness, patience, and calm presence. By the time the distant ports were just visible, low islands and stretches of coastline softened by mist and haze, the crew was fully attuned to the pulse of the ship. Every subtle vibration, every sway of the deck, every whisper of wind and water had become part of their awareness. Treasure below deck, timber and rigging above. Sails, catching the faintest breath of wind, all existed in one seamless, hypnotic flow. The anticipation of land was absorbed without haste, a gentle pull that guided attention while preserving the meditation of motion, sound, and presence. And as the Flor de la Mar sailed closer to unseen shores, the pulse of the vessel carried all aboard deeper into the rhythmic, meditative awareness of the ocean's vast expanse. Waves rose and fell with steady inevitability. Timber flexed with soft groans. Ropes hummed, sails shifted, lanterns glimmered, and the moon reflected faintly across silvered swells. Crew, treasure, timber, sails, and hull moved together as one entity, synchronized in continuous, hypnotic rhythm, carrying all into the gentle anticipation of land, storms, and the ongoing journey across infinite horizons. Thank you for joining us on this voyage. If this journey brought you a moment of peace, consider subscribing for more atmospheric tales from the sea. Part 5. Ports and the gentle stir of curiosity, the Flor de la Mar sailed steadily toward the distant ports, her dark hull cutting gracefully through waves that shimmered in hues of deep blue and aquamarine. Every rise and fall of the swell sent soft vibrations through the timber, echoing through ropes and sails, carrying a pulse that seemed to synchronize with every heartbeat aboard. Sailors moved in deliberate rhythm, hands gliding along familiar ropes, feet adjusting to the gentle sway, eyes tracing the subtle shifts of the horizon, where the first hints of civilization softened the vast expanse of the sea. The smell of salt and timber mingled with the warmer scent of pressed cargo below deck, a constant reminder of the delicate balance between human, vessel, and treasure. Chests shifted gently with the swell, coins and trinkets murmuring faint metallic echoes that harmonized with the creak of the hull and the hum of taut ropes. Even the faintest thump of metal against wood became a note in the ongoing symphony of life aboard, drawing attention to the seamless integration of every element of the ship's world. Mornings were quiet and meditative. Sailors climbed rigging to observe the horizon, noting distant shapes of masts, low hills, and the faint glimmer of port structures. Lines were adjusted, sails checked, and cargo below deck was shifted with careful hands to maintain balance. Every movement was absorbed into the rhythm of the ship, rise and fall, sway and flex, hum and creak. A hypnotic pulse that carried each sailor deeper into the continuous lullaby of ocean, timber, wind, and human awareness. As the ship neared port, gentle excitement began to ripple through the crew. Yet even this anticipation was absorbed into the hypnotic rhythm, felt as a soft vibration rather than a rush of energy. Eyes lingered on the faint outlines of buildings, the docked vessels, and the calm waters of the harbor. Sailors' movements were careful, deliberate, hands brushing along ropes, adjusting sails, checking cargo, all synchronized with the pulse of hull and swell. The ship, fully alive, flexed and shifted with graceful inevitability, as though guiding the crew safely toward land. The first harbor emerged slowly from the haze. Wooden docks stretched along the water's edge. Small boats bobbed gently, and faint activity on shore hinted at trade and commerce. The sun glinted on the calm waters, reflecting off sails' hulls and lanterns, casting everything in a soft golden glow. The crew moved in quiet coordination, adjusting lines, lowering small boats, preparing to unload treasure. Every creak of timber, every hum of rope, every ripple of water against hull was part of the meditative flow, a continuous lullaby that carried the ship closer to land. Below deck, treasure was prepared for careful unloading. Chests of gold, silver, and precious spices were shifted gently to allow for smooth transfer. The faint metallic clinks echoed in rhythm with the soft swell, every sound absorbed into the continuous symphony of ship and sea. Sailors moved slowly and deliberately, hands brushing along wood and rope, aware of each subtle vibration, each gentle thump, each whisper of shifting cargo. Every moment became part of the hypnotic meditation, a delicate harmony of attention, motion, and calm presence. The air near port was filled with new scents. Salt mingled with faint smoke from cooking fires, wood from docks and buildings, and the subtle temps of trade goods being moved and stored. Sailors breathed deeply, absorbing each smell into the rhythm of life aboard the Flor de la Mar. Their steps remained measured, their hands gliding along ropes and timbers, their eyes observing the soft pulse of docked boats and quiet activity along the harbor. Even this subtle stir of life ashore was integrated into the continuous lullaby, a gentle extension of the ship's hypnotic rhythm. Small boats were lowered with soft creaks of wood and rope, each movement deliberate and carefully synchronized. With the rise and fall of swell, treasure was moved gently, hands brushing along polished chests, metal edges whispering faintly against one another. Sailors walked with quiet attentiveness, each step absorbed into the continuous, hypnotic pulse of hull, wave, rope, and timber. Even the anticipation of interaction with the dock and its inhabitants was folded into the meditation of motion and presence, a calm awareness that guided each movement. Gentle storms occasionally brushed the coast, faint clouds drifting lazily across the sky, a soft breeze carrying distant scents of rain. The ship responded naturally. Sails adjusted, timber flexed, ropes hummed under light tension. Crew moved in deliberate synchronization, their awareness folded into the hypnotic rhythm of ship and sea. Even minor disruptions, the touch of water on deck from spray or rain, the clink of ropes, the shift of cargo became part of the continuous symphony, reinforcing calm presence and measured attention. Night brought a deeper, slower rhythm. Lanterns glimmered along deck and dock, casting gentle reflections on polished timber and taut sails. Moonlight shimmered across the harbor's calm waters, painting ripples in silver. Crew moved quietly, adjusting lines, checking cargo, observing subtle shifts of wind and water. Below deck, treasure shifted softly with the gentle swell, echoing metallic murmurs that harmonized with the hum of ropes and creak of timber. Every sound and motion reinforced the hypnotic lullaby of vessel, crew, and ocean. The crew's bond with the ship deepened further in these quiet moments. Hands moved along ropes and timber, steps synchronized with the swell, eyes attuned to the faintest shifts in wind, wave, and horizon. Every creak, every sigh, every metallic whisper below deck became part of the unbroken, continuous meditation. Even the soft anticipation of interaction with port life was absorbed, a gentle tension woven into the seamless rhythm of ship, ocean, and crew. By the time the treasure was fully unloaded, the harbor settled into calm evening light. The sun dipped low, casting long, soft shadows across docks and deck, and the water reflected muted golds and silvers. Crew rested quietly on deck, leaning against railings, feeling the swell beneath their feet, breathing in sync with the hull, listening to the soft symphony of ropes, timber, and lapping water. The ship and crew existed as one living entity, a continuous rhythm of motion, sound, and presence, even as human and vessel interacted with the land beyond the harbor. Gentle storms continued to sweep across distant horizons, bringing soft rain that polished timber and slicked deck. The ship's sails pulsed softly, ropes hummed faintly, and the hull flexed gracefully with each wave. Crew moved slowly and deliberately, securing lines, adjusting cargo, climbing, rigging, and observing the subtle rhythm of storm and vessel. The storm became another note in the long hypnotic symphony of life aboard, reinforcing calm awareness, attentiveness, and presence. The harbor grew quiet at night, the movement of boats and humans slowing to a measured, gentle pace. Lanterns glowed softly along docks, reflecting on silvered water. Crew and vessel continued to move in perfect harmony, hands gliding along ropes, feet adjusting to gentle sway, eyes tracing the subtle shifts of moonlight on waves. Below deck, treasure rested quietly, shifting slightly with swell, metallic echoes merging with the hum of ropes and creak of timber. All existed as one continuous hypnotic lullaby of ship, ocean, and night. And so, the Flor de la Mar rested for a time, anchored near the first distant ports, her hull rocking gently, sails catching faint winds, ropes humming, timber flexing, treasure settling. Crew and vessel merged into seamless meditative awareness, every breath, every movement, every glance absorbed into the hypnotic rhythm. The harbor, distant and quiet, became another extension of the ongoing journey, a calm presence integrated into the continuous pulse of wind, water, wood, and human consciousness. Part 6. Trade Tides and the Quiet Flow of Days. The Flor de la Mar rested gently near the first port, her dark timber hull rocking with a soft inevitability, responding to the swell of the harbor waters. Waves lapped against her sides in a slow, continuous rhythm, each rise and fall a gentle pulse that echoed through the timbers and ropes. Sailors moved in measured steps, hands gliding along familiar lines, adjusting sails lightly even in the calm, their eyes tracing the movement of water and distant docks. Every motion, every glance, every breath became part of the ongoing lullaby of ship and sea, a hypnotic continuity that carried mind and body into deep, steady awareness. Below deck, treasure rested in quiet repose. Chests of gold, silver, and precious spices murmured faintly as they settled after unloading. The soft metallic echoes harmonizing with the gentle hum of timber and ropes. The scent of salt mingled with faint smoke from cooking fires on shore, the aroma of wood from docks, and the subtle scent of goods being moved and stacked. Each smell, each vibration, each faint sound was absorbed into the rhythm of the vessel, reinforcing a meditative awareness that extended from deck to hold, from hull to horizon. The crew began their subtle interactions with port life, moving quietly along docks and warehouses. Even the smallest tasks, a sailor handing a chest to a dock worker, tying a rope to a post, or adjusting the placement of cargo, were performed in calm, deliberate rhythm. Each movement was absorbed into the ship's hypnotic pulse, hands brushing wood and rope, eyes observing gentle shifts in light, wind, and tide. Even conversation was measured and soft, the cadence of voices blending into the ambient hum of water, wind, and creaking timber. Trade became a slow, meditative process. Sailors exchanged gold and goods for provisions, each transaction deliberate, rhythmic, almost ceremonial in its pace. The slight metallic clink of coins, the subtle rustle of parchment, the soft murmur of bargaining voices all merged with the ambient soundscape, reinforcing the hypnotic flow of life aboard the Flor de la Mar. Even as cargo moved between ship and shore, the vessel responded naturally. Timber flexing, ropes humming, sails catching faint breezes, all synchronized in gentle, continuous harmony. During long afternoons, the crew observed port life from the deck. Boats drifted lazily in the harbor, their hulls rising and falling with quiet, predictable rhythm. Sailors traced the arcs of gulls above, their wings casting fleeting shadows on the water below. Each moment, each movement, each sound was noted softly, absorbed fully into the meditative cadence of the voyage. Even subtle disturbances, the creak of dock planks, the faint splash of oars, the rustle of goods on shore, were integrated into the continuous lullaby of wind, wave, timber, and human presence. Tides shifted slowly, and the Flor de la Mar responded with natural grace. She rose and fell, gently, timber flexing, ropes humming, sails moving with subtle adjustments to the soft currents. Crew moved with awareness, shifting cargo lightly, adjusting lines, and observing the motion of water, wind, and vessel. Each subtle vibration beneath their feet was noted, each sigh of timber felt, each whisper of ropes acknowledged. The ship, the crew, and the harbor merged into a seamless meditation, a continuous rhythm of presence and motion. Evenings were slow and deliberate. Lanterns glimmered along deck and dock, casting gentle reflections on water and polished timber. The moon rose high, silvering the gentle swells and illuminating faint shadows of distant boats and dock structures. Crew moved quietly, adjusting lines, observing the subtle dance of light across waves, leaning against rails in soft contemplation. Below deck, treasure murmured faintly, metallic echoes blending seamlessly with the hum of ropes and creak of timber. Every sound, every vibration, every movement reinforced the continuous hypnotic lullaby of ship, ocean, and harbor. Subtle interpersonal tensions arose among the crew, gentle ripples in an otherwise calm surface. A misplacement of cargo, a delayed task, a whispered disagreement. It was small, absorbed into the continuous rhythm, noted but never urgent, integrated into the ongoing flow of motion and awareness. Hands adjusted ropes in measured response. Timber flexed gently. Sails shifted softly, and the swell of the harbor beneath deck carried all into quiet resolution. Even conflict, subtle and minor, became a part of the meditative cadence, teaching patience, awareness, and careful attention to detail. Storms occasionally drifted across the horizon, faint and distant, bringing soft rain or a subtle shift in wind. The Flor de la Mar flexed with each subtle change, sails adjusting, ropes humming, timber sighing. Crew responded deliberately, each hand movement synchronized with the whole's gentle rise and fall, each glance attuned to the faintest change in sky or water. Even these small variations were absorbed seamlessly into the hypnotic flow of life aboard. Another note in the continuous symphony of wind, wave, timber, and human presence. Night deepened the vessel's lullaby. Lanterns reflected softly on calm harbor waters, casting muted light on sails, ropes, and deck. Moonlight shimmered across gentle swells, painting arcs of silver across the polished timber. Crew moved in quiet harmony, adjusting lines, observing subtle changes in wind and tide, climbing rigging to feel the pulse of hull and swell. Below deck, treasure shifted slightly with each motion of water, metallic echoes joining the faint hum of ropes and sigh of timber. Every vibration, every sound, every sway became part of the continuous hypnotic rhythm. The harbor, though alive with gentle activity, became absorbed into the meditation of the ship. Boats bobbed softly, distant footsteps echoed faintly, cargo shifted gently on docks. Even the anticipation of future journeys, subtle curiosities about distant ports, or the faint desire to explore beyond the horizon were absorbed into the rhythm. All movement, all sound, all breath merged seamlessly with the unbroken lullaby of vessel, crew, and ocean. By the end of the stay, the Flor de la Mar had absorbed herself fully into the pulse of port life. Timber flexed gracefully, sails caught faint evening winds, ropes hummed, treasure rested quietly below deck. Crew moved in perfect harmony with vessel and surroundings, fully synchronized with the continuous rhythm of ship, ocean, and harbor. The gentle sway of deck beneath feet, the subtle vibration of lines, the soft creak of hull, the murmured metallic echoes below decal became a part of one seamless meditation, one hypnotic lullaby that carried them into quiet reflection and deep, steady awareness. As night fell and lanterns glimmered faintly across deck and dock, the Flor de la Mar rested at anchor, her pulse slow and continuous, rising and falling in harmony with waves, wind, and tide. Crew lay quietly on deck or leaned against rails, hands gliding along familiar ropes, eyes tracing the soft shimmer of moonlight on water, ears attuned to the soft hum of timber and ropes. Below deck, treasure murmured faintly with every swell, each metallic whisper harmonizing with the gentle creak of hull and sigh of ropes. The ship, crew, harbor, and ocean existed as one seamless, hypnotic entity, moving together in unbroken rhythm, preparing for the next journey across infinite horizons. Crew moved in deliberate steps, checking lines and sails, observing the subtle motion of water and breathing in sync with the pulse of the ship. As the first small boats were raised and lashed securely to the sides, the Flor de la Mar felt the quiet anticipation of departure. Each creak of timber, each whisper of ropes, each gentle slap of water against hull became part of the hypnotic rhythm of preparation. Sailors moved with unhurried precision, adjusting cargo, checking lines, glancing toward the slowly brightening horizon, where the open ocean stretched in infinite blue. Every motion, every breath, every sound merged seamlessly with the pulse of vessel, wave and wind, creating a continuous, soothing lullaby. Even the subtle scent of salt and timber rising from deck became part of the meditative awareness, grounding each breath and movement. Out at sea, the Flor de la Mar felt the subtle change of openness. The water deepened to a darker, endless blue. Waves rose and fell with measured inevitability, and the wind whispered more freely across sails and rigging. Sailors climbed rigging to observe the horizon, tracing the slow movements of distant clouds, the faint glimmer of sunlight across waves, and the subtle arcs of seabirds tracing silent paths above. Every motion, every glance, every faint vibration became part of the hypnotic rhythm, a continuous meditation on vessel, sea, and sky. Days passed in gentle continuity, the ship's pulse unbroken. crew rested or moved slowly in synchronization with the ship's rhythm. Hands gliding along familiar ropes, eyes following the soft pulses of swell, ears tuned to the faint hum of timber and ropes. Below deck, treasure shifted slightly with each swell, metallic echoes harmonizing with the subtle creak of hull and sigh of ropes. All merged into one continuous hypnotic lullaby, a seamless meditation on motion, sound, and presence. The open ocean brought new subtle dangers, though nothing violent or urgent. Floating debris sometimes brushed against hull, a faint disturbance in the steady pulse. Occasional rogue waves rose higher than the surrounding swell, gentle but firm, testing the crew's coordination and the vessel's flexibility. Sailors responded with calm, deliberate movements, adjusting lines, shifting cargo, and observing each change with quiet attention. Crew observed these subtle changes with calm attentiveness, climbing, rigging, or standing quietly to note the angles of light, the faint color variations of water, the distant shimmer of far-off swells. Every observation was absorbed into the hypnotic flow, another layer in the continuous meditation of life aboard gentle storms occasionally approached, not violent, but persistent enough to adjust attention. Soft rain slicked the deck and polished timber. Sails flexed in rhythm with wind. Ropes hummed faintly under tension. Crew moved with deliberate care, adjusting lines, observing the subtle changes in wind and swell, shifting cargo lightly. Timber flexed with soft creaks, and the hull responded gracefully to each minor variation. Every sound and movement was absorbed fully, reinforcing the ongoing meditation, the unbroken rhythm of vessel, crew, and ocean. Evening brought longer shadows and soft golden light across waves and sails. Lanterns glimmered faintly along deck and rigging, painting muted reflections on polished timber. Moonlight rose gradually, silvering the gentle swell, highlighting ropes and sails, and faintly illuminating treasure below deck. Crew moved slowly, in harmony with hull and wave, adjusting lines, climbing, rigging to feel the subtle pulse beneath feet, listening to the metallic murmurs of treasure and the faint hum of ropes. Each sensation was integrated fully into the ongoing lullaby of life aboard Flor. The Flor de la Mar continued eastward, carrying her crew and cargo into an unbroken rhythm of motion, sound, and presence. Waves rose and fell with gentle inevitability. Timber flexed softly. Ropes hummed. Sails shifted with subtle wind. Lanterns glimmered, and the moon traced silver arcs across water. Crew and vessel moved as one entity, synchronized in continuous hypnotic harmony. Part 8. The whisper of storms and ocean's warning. The Flor, Delamar, drifted eastward across the open ocean. Her dark timber hull gliding through waves that rose and fell in slow, deliberate arcs. Each swell pressed against the timbers, vibrating through deck and hull. Through ropes and sails, into every muscle, every heartbeat aboard. The ship seemed alive, breathing with the pulse of the sea, carrying crew and cargo in an unbroken rhythm. Sailors moved in measured steps, hands brushing along ropes and polished timber, eyes tracing the subtle ripples and glimmers across the horizon, fully absorbed in the quiet meditation of their surroundings. Clouds drifted slowly, distant at first, thin and gray, soft shadows stretching across silvered waves. Yet there was a subtle weight to their movement, a gentle warning carried on the breeze. Sailors noticed the faint shift in wind, the subtle rise of swell, the whispered vibrations through timber and rigging. Even the faintest sigh of ropes or soft creak of wood became part of the awareness, absorbed fully into the hypnotic rhythm of ship and ocean. No alarm rose, only attention folded calmly into the pulse of the vessel, a quiet readiness for what might come. The ocean stretched endlessly, waves undulating in slow, predictable cycles. The ship moved with grace, rising and falling, her sails flexing softly with each whisper of wind, ropes humming in gentle response. Below deck, Treasure murmured faintly, metallic echoes resonating in harmony with the soft groan of timber and the hum of rigging. Even the subtle weight of precious cargo seemed to add to the hypnotic cadence, a reminder of the vessel's purpose, the human endeavor intertwined with the unyielding presence of the sea. Days passed in soft continuity. Sailors adjusted lines, climbed rigging, scrubbed deck, observed horizon and swell, each movement deliberate, synchronized with the rise and fall of hull and wave. Meals were shared quietly, sounds of utensils, bowls, and footsteps blending seamlessly into the ambient symphony of wind, water, timber, and rope. Even conversation was subdued, careful, rhythmic, a quiet part of the overall lullaby of ship and ocean. Each breath, each glance, each subtle vibration became part of the continuous, hypnotic flow of life aboard the Flor de la Mar. As the distant clouds thickened slightly, the crew felt the gentle suspense of approaching weather. The swell increased imperceptibly, sails flexed with new tension, ropes hummed with added vibration. Sailors adjusted lines and cargo with calm attentiveness, each motion synchronized with the vessel's response. Timber flexed, deck swayed, hull pressed against rising waves, and the pulse of the ship deepened. Even the faint metallic murmurs of treasure below deck seemed to resonate more intensely, as though anticipating the subtle disturbance above. At night, lanterns glimmered faintly along deck and rigging, casting soft reflections on silvered water. Moonlight painted arcs across waves, highlighting crests that rose slightly higher than before, reflecting in gentle flashes across timber and sails. Crew moved slowly, climbing rigging to feel subtle pulses beneath feet, hands gliding along ropes, eyes tracing the faintly shifting horizon. Below deck, Treasure shifted slightly, metallic echoes merging with the creak of timber, the hum of ropes, and the sigh of sails. Every sound, every motion, every subtle vibration became part of the hypnotic meditation, even as suspense quietly deepened. The first distant flashes of lightning appeared along the horizon, soft and slow, illuminating clouds in gentle bursts. Thunder rolled quietly in the distance, A low vibration felt through hull and timber rather than loud sound. Sailors observed with calm attentiveness, adjusting lines, observing sail tension, shifting cargo lightly, each action synchronized with the vessel's pulse. The ship responded naturally, flexing with grace, riding each swell with quiet inevitability, carrying crew and cargo further into the hypnotic rhythm of wind, wave, and wood. The storm crept closer gradually, soft rains beginning to fall, slicking deck and glistening on polished timber. Sails pulsed gently with the breeze, ropes hummed under mild tension, and the hull flexed with measured grace. Crew moved deliberately, adjusting lines and cargo, moving slowly across deck, climbing rigging to feel subtle shifts in wind and water, even the faint splash of rain on the deck, the soft patter on sails, and the metallic murmurs below deck became part of the continuous meditation. A gentle symphony of storm and ship warning and rhythm combined. Waves began to rise slightly higher, rolling with increased inevitability. Timber flexed more noticeably. Sails pulsed with tension. Ropes hummed in richer resonance. Crew continued to move calmly and deliberately, hands gliding along familiar lines, eyes following the subtle shifts of horizon and swell. Steps synchronized with hulls, rise and fall. The ship's pulse deepened, heartbeat-like, echoing through deck hull ropes and rigging. Even subtle creaks, murmurs, and vibrations became notes in a hypnotic symphony, blending suspense and meditation into one continuous lullaby. Clouds now thickened, darkening the horizon with soft, undulating shadows. The swell rose gradually, waves cresting in gentle, measured arcs. Sailors observed carefully, adjusting lines, ensuring cargo was secure, and feeling the pulse of timber beneath feet. Rain fell in light sheets, slicking deck, polishing wood, enhancing the tactile and auditory meditation of life aboard. The subtle intensity of approaching storm infused every movement, every glance, every sound, yet carried only a soft tension, folded into the continuous rhythm rather than breaking it. Below deck, treasure responded to the increasing swell with faint, shifting murmurs. Metallic echoes resonated softly, harmonizing with the hum of ropes and the creak of timber. The pulse of cargo merged seamlessly with the ship's heartbeat, reinforcing awareness of weight, balance, and rhythm. Even the faint, subtle threat of larger waves and stronger wind became a part of meditation, a quiet prelude to forces beyond human control. Every breath, every hand movement, every step synchronized with hull and swell, blending calm presence with subtle anticipation. As night deepened, lanterns glimmered softly against the dark water, casting reflections on sails, ropes, and polished timber. Moonlight shone faintly through breaks in clouds, silvering the swell, highlighting the subtle tension in sails and rigging. Crew moved slowly, adjusting lines, shifting cargo, climbing rigging to feel the swell beneath feet, listening to the faint metallic murmur of treasure and the soft creak of timber. Every sensation, every subtle vibration, every faint warning became part of the unbroken, hypnotic lullaby, carrying sailors deeper into meditative awareness while the storm whispered from the horizon. The gentle suspense of ocean and sky built slowly, a quiet prelude to the trials yet to come. The Flor. Delamar rose and fell with inevitability. Sails flexed in rhythm with wind, ropes hummed under tension, timber creaked in steady response. Crew moved in careful synchronization, hands gliding along rope, eyes tracing faint lightning flashes, steps aligned with the hull's pulse. Every element, the ship, The storm, the treasure, the crew, and the ocean merged into one seamless meditation. A continuous lullaby imbued with quiet suspense and hypnotic anticipation. And so, the Flor de la Mar sailed onward into the approaching storm, the faint whisper of danger in the swell, in the wind, in the darkening clouds. Waves, wind, timber, ropes, sails, treasure, and crew moved together as one living entity, synchronized in measured hypnotic rhythm. The subtle tension of the distant tempest, the gentle rise of swell, the low, metallic murmurs below deck, all became part of the continuous lullaby, a hypnotic meditation on ocean, vessel, and life at sea, foreshadowing the fateful moments that would one day carry her to the depths. Part 9. The storm deepens, and the ocean's grip, the Flor de la Mar rose and fell with a quiet inevitability, her dark timber hull flexing in gentle arcs that resonated through the deck and rigging. The waves now lifted higher, rolling in steady, deliberate pulses, their crests foaming white against the darkening sea. The wind whispered across the sails with a firmer insistence. Ropes began to hum in soft, vibrating tones, and the timber sighed with each subtle shift. The great ship moved as if it were alive, its pulse a steady heartbeat beneath the feet and hands of the crew, carrying them deeper into the rhythm of the swelling ocean. The crew moved with a measured precision, each motion synchronized with the rise and fall of the hull and wave. Hands brushed along taut ropes, gliding over polished timber, adjusting lines and sails with quiet attentiveness. Their feet shifted to meet the subtle sway of the deck, each step harmonized with the pulse of the vessel. Eyes traced the horizon, noting the slow approach of darkened clouds, the distant flash of lightning reflected in the silvered waves. Even the soft, metallic murmur of the treasure below deck became part of this continuous lullaby, echoing the rhythm of hull, rope, and wind. The storm approached with a gentle inevitability. The clouds thickened, dark and rolling, spreading across the sky in broad, slow arcs. Rain began in soft sheets, slicking the deck and glistening on the timber, brushing the sails with a quiet insistence. The swell increased in measured cycles, each wave carrying the ship higher, then letting her settle in a harmonious descent. The sailors adjusted lines and cargo with calm deliberation, their hands and eyes attuned to the smallest shifts in tension, the subtle vibrations beneath their feet, and the deepening pulse of the hull and rigging. Even in the growing storm, life aboard continued in a hypnotic rhythm. Meals were shared quietly below deck, the sounds of utensils, bowls, and footsteps blending into the hum of ropes, the creak of timber, and the lapping of waves. Every action was deliberate, every breath synchronized with the rise and fall of the swell, the subtle vibrations of rope and timber, the metallic whispers of the treasure. The crew and the vessel existed as one, a living entity in a continuous meditation, absorbing every note of wind, rain, and wave into the unbroken lullaby of life at sea. Lightning flashed across the horizon in slow, luminous arcs, illuminating the dark clouds and silvery waves in a fleeting brilliance. Thunder rolled softly, resonating through the hull and deck rather than breaking the calm with a harsh sound. The sailors observed with quiet attentiveness, adjusting lines, shifting cargo, and climbing the rigging to feel the pulse of the hull beneath their hands and feet. Even the soft, vibrating metallic echoes from below deck merged seamlessly with the hum of timber and ropes, reinforcing the hypnotic rhythm of the vessel, the crew, and the ocean. The rain increased slightly, sliding over sails and decking, slicking the wood and rope, enhancing the crew's tactile and auditory awareness. The sails flexed, ropes hummed, and timber creaked with a measured response. The men moved deliberately, adjusting lines, ensuring the cargo's stability, and observing every subtle change in the swell and wind. The pulse of the ship deepened, heartbeat-like, resonating through every footstep, every hand, every breath. Even the minor splashes against the hull, the subtle shifts of cargo, and the faint sighs of timber became integral parts of this continuous hypnotic meditation. The waves rose higher, cresting with soft inevitability, rolling in gentle, deliberate cycles that lifted the hull and let it settle in a steady descent. The timber flexed under the constant pressure, ropes hummed in soft vibration, and sails pulsed with tension. Below deck, the treasure murmured faintly, its metallic echoes blending with the creak of timber and the sigh of the hull. The crew moved carefully, their hands gliding over rope, their eyes tracing the shifting clouds and waves. Their steps harmonized with the swell. Each subtle disturbance became part of the lullaby, a note in the continuous symphony of ship, storm, and ocean. Night fell over the storm, and lanterns cast a muted light across the deck and rigging. Moonlight broke occasionally through the clouds, silvering the swell, highlighting sails, ropes, and timber, tracing arcs on the foaming waves. The crew moved slowly, climbing, rigging, adjusting lines, shifting cargo, all synchronized with the rise and fall of the hull. Below deck, the treasure shifted gently, its metallic murmurs resonating with the creak of timber and the hum of ropes. Every sound, every motion, every subtle vibration became part of the hypnotic lullaby, carrying the sailors deeper into a meditative awareness while the storm whispered its warnings. The clouds thickened, the wind strengthened, and the rain fell in consistent sheets, each drop a soft percussion on the sail's deck and ropes. The waves rose and fell with gentle inevitability, cresting in measured arcs that flexed the hull and lifted the timber in soft, continuous pulses. The crew adjusted lines, checked cargo, and climbed the rigging to feel the subtle vibrations beneath their hands and feet. Even the minor splashes of water against the deck, the faint groans of timber, and the metallic whispers from below deck became notes in the unbroken meditation of life. Aboard, as the storm deepened, a subtle tension settled across the crew. Every glance, every breath, every hand movement was guided by the soft warnings of the waves, the wind, and the swell. The ship responded with grace, its timber flexing, ropes humming, sails pulsing, the hull rising and falling with inevitability. Even the soft metallic murmurs of the treasure below deck seemed heightened, echoing the gentle suspense carried in every element of the vessel and its crew. Lightning arced faintly, illuminating foaming crests, swaying rigging, and polished timber. Thunder rolled softly, vibrating through the hull and deck. The sailors adjusted lines calmly, aware of the wind and swell of the cargo and timber. Their hands and feet synchronized with the pulse of the ship and the ocean. Every creak, every sigh, every whisper became part of the hypnotic rhythm, the continuous lullaby that guided their breath movement and awareness, even as a subtle danger edged closer in the storm. By the night's end, the Flor de la Mar had absorbed herself fully into the pulse of the storm and the ocean. The lanterns glimmered faintly, moonlight shimmered on the waves, and the sails and ropes moved in gentle pulses. The timber flexed, the treasure murmured. The crew moved in perfect harmony with their vessel and environment, fully synchronized with the swell and the wind, the gentle suspense of the storm, the rise and fall of the waves. The metallic echoes below deck all merged into one continuous meditation. a hypnotic lullaby of ship, ocean, and the soft approach of fate, carrying the sailors ever closer to the depths of their journey. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe for the final chapter of this incredible story. Part 10. The final descent and the oceans embrace the Flor. Delamar rose and fell with gentle inevitability. The storm that had shadowed her journey, now pressing closer, waves swelling in measured, deliberate cycles. Timber creaked softly under the strain. Sails flexed with tension. Ropes hummed in low vibration. Rain fell in soft, relentless sheets, slicking deck and polishing wood, each drop joining the continuous percussion of wind, water, and rigging. The horizon was lost to gray. The world narrowed to the pulse of the vessel, the sway of swell, the hum of timber, the murmuring of treasure, and the rhythmic motion of sailors moving with calm attentiveness across deck. The wind strengthened, bending sails, tugging ropes, whispering through rigging with insistent persistence. Crew moved deliberately, hands gliding along lines, feet shifting to meet the gentle yet steady rise and fall of deck. Eyes tracing faint flashes of lightning through the thickened clouds. Below deck, chests of treasure murmured faintly, metallic echoes vibrating through timber and hull, reinforcing the pulse of the ship and the meditative awareness of those aboard. Each subtle vibration, each sigh of wood, each hum of rope became part of one continuous lullaby, hypnotic and enveloping, even as the sea's power began to assert itself more strongly. Waves rose higher, rolling with soft inevitability, their crests foaming white against dark timber. The ship flexed under their gentle insistence, her hull bending gracefully, deck rising and falling in measured arcs. Sailors adjusted cargo with careful hands, shifted ropes with rhythmic precision, climbed rigging to feel the pulse of the hull beneath feet. Every breath, every step, every subtle movement became part of the continuous meditation, even as tension built quietly, almost imperceptibly, a whispered warning of forces beyond human control. The storm arrived fully, a slow, pressing presence. Lightning arced across clouds in fleeting brilliance, illuminating foaming crests and taut sails. Thunder rolled softly, vibrating through deck and hull, echoing faintly in the hold among murmuring treasure. Rain fell in sheets, slicking wood, pulsing across sails, tapping ropes, creating a steady, hypnotic percussion. The swell increased further, rolling the vessel with inevitability. The pulse of the Flor de la Mar deepened, resonating through timber, ropes, hull, sails, cargo, and crew alike. The first soft warnings of disaster arrived in subtle shifts. Cargo beneath deck shifted more forcefully, metal murmurs echoing through timber and rope. Sails, strained lines, tugged with steady insistence. Timber flexed audibly, deck rising higher with each swell, then settling with gentle, inevitable descent. Crew responded with calm precision, adjusting lines, securing cargo, leaning into the rhythm of the ship, hands and feet moving in measured synchronization with every creak, hum, and sigh. Even as danger whispered, the hypnotic meditation of motion and presence continued, folding tension into awareness rather than panic. Storm and sea moved as one. Waves rose with measured inevitability, lifting hull, deck, and sails higher than before, only to drop in graceful descent. Rain fell in unbroken sheets, slicking timber and glistening on rope. Sailors moved in careful harmony, climbing, rigging, adjusting cargo, checking lines, observing the subtle pulses of swell and wind. Below deck, treasure shifted slightly, murmuring faint metallic echoes, reinforcing the hypnotic cadence, the continuous lullaby of ship, crew, and ocean. Every vibration, every sound, every breath was absorbed into the meditation. Even as the pressure of the storm pressed closer, night deepened. Lanterns glimmered faintly along deck and rigging, casting muted reflections on rising and falling waves. Moonlight broke sporadically through clouds, silvering the swell, highlighting sails, ropes, timber, and cargo. Crew moved slowly, climbing rigging to feel hulls pulse beneath feet, adjusting lines, shifting cargo in rhythmic, measured motions. Every subtle vibration, timber flex, rope, hum, metallic murmur, seamlessly into the hypnotic lullaby. Awareness deepened. Tension became meditation. Suspense became rhythm. Presence became the only certainty in the vast, moving, enveloping sea. Waves rose further, swelling with steady insistence, crests foaming white against hull. Rain fell in unbroken sheets. Sails strained. Ropes sang under tension. Timber groaned with measured inevitability. Crew moved carefully, hands gliding over rope, eyes tracking wind and water, feet harmonizing with deck sway. The ship responded with grace, rising, falling, flexing, vibrating, humming. A living entity carrying treasure and sailors through the hypnotic rhythm of wind, wave, and storm. Then the seas, pressure deepened, a subtle warning transforming into relentless insistence. Water began to breach deck edges, dripping, pooling, pressing downward with quiet inevitability. Cargo below shifted more forcefully, metallic echoes joining creaks of timber and hum of rope in a heightened symphony. Sailors moved with deliberate calm, hands adjusting lines, feet stabilizing with deck rise and fall, eyes tracing every swell, every gust, every flash of lightning. Awareness expanded to include every element, the pulse of hull, the sway of deck, the murmur of treasure, the breath of wind, the swell of wave. The ship began a slow, gentle surrender. Timber flexed fully under the weight of water and wave. Hull creaked in deeper arcs. Sails strained against the wind's insistence. Ropes hummed with subtle urgency. Crew moved in rhythmic, meditative response, adjusting, balancing, observing, existing fully in the hypnotic pulse of motion and presence. Even as disaster approached, even as inevitability whispered in every vibration, every sigh, every hum, the continuous lullaby of ship, sea, and crew held firm. Below deck, treasure murmured faintly, metallic echoes mixing with creak of timber and hum of rope. Chests shifted gently, then more decisively, sliding with each swell, carrying their weight into the pulse of the vessel. The ship's heartbeat deepened, slower, heavier, resonant. Crew felt each vibration, each murmur, each shift. Hands, feet, and breath, fully synchronized with the rhythm of hull, wave, wind, and storm. Every element the vessel, the cargo, the storm, the ocean, the crew merged into one seamless, hypnotic entity, moving inevitably toward resolution. Rain fell harder, waves lifted higher, wind pressed relentlessly. The Flor de la Mar flexed, groaned, vibrated, a living pulse of wood, rope, sail, and metal. Crew moved slowly, deliberately, adjusting, stabilizing, breathing with the rise and fall, hands and feet synchronized with every vibration. Even as water encroached upon deck edges, even as timber bowed beneath pressure, the hypnotic lullaby continued, awareness folding, tension, anticipation, and surrender into meditative calm. And then, with the inevitability felt in every creak, hum, and sigh, the Flor de la Mar began her final descent. Water pressed fully against hull. Timber groaned under the weight. Sails and rigging pulled with relentless insistence. Crew, fully synchronized with the pulse of ship and sea, moved with measured calm, hands adjusting lines, feet shifting to meet sway, eyes tracing wave and wind. Below deck, treasure shifted, metallic echoes resonating through timber and water, merging into the unbroken lullaby. The ocean embraced her, slowly, insistently, pulling hull and deck into its deep, unbroken rhythm. Timber flexed, ropes hummed, sails shivered with wind and water. Chests murmured faint metallic whispers. Crew moved as one with vessel and sea, synchronized in presence, awareness, and motion. Every creak, hum, vibration, and pulse became part of the hypnotic meditation, each sailor folding fully into rhythm, every breath attuned to the swell, the wind, the tide. And so, the Flor de la Mar disappeared beneath the waves. Timber, rope, sail, treasure, and crew became one with the ocean, a seamless entity moving in continuous hypnotic rhythm. Even as she sank, the pulse of her life, the rise and fall of waves, the hum of ropes, the metallic whisper of treasure, the creak of timber can, continued in endless meditation. Awareness, surrender, presence, and motion merged into the deep, eternal pulse of the sea, a lullaby without end, carrying all into the infinite, calm embrace of the ocean. The storm passed, waves settled into gentle arcs. The wind softened, rain ceased. Where once floated a mighty ship, only rhythm and pulse remained. The ocean murmured faint metallic echoes. The swell sang softly. The horizon stretched infinitely. The Flor de la Mar had become part of the ocean. Her story folded into the continuous, hypnotic lullaby of sea and sky. Treasure and timber, human and vessel, forever present, forever at peace. Part 11. The Sunken Fortune and the Ocean's Secrets. The Flor de la Mar rests now beneath the waves, her timbers embraced by the quiet darkness of the deep, cradling a treasure that has slept for centuries. She lies hidden where currents shift and sands cover her, a silent guardian of wealth and wonder, carrying the weight of history in her submerged hold. Every plank, every rope, every chest of gold and silver murmurs faintly in rhythm with the gentle, unbroken pulse of the ocean. Inside her darkened holds, treasure waits. Gold, silver, gemstones, and artifacts from distant lands rest undisturbed. Each piece a story of kingdoms and empires, of journeys across vast oceans. Some say she carried the looted riches of the Sultanate of Malacca, tribute and plunder from conquered lands, stored carefully below deck, intended to reach distant courts across the sea. Chests brimming with gold bars, coins stamped with royal seals, rubies, emeralds, diamonds, and sapphires lie quietly, their weight pressing into the timbers, their glimmer only hinted at through the silence of centuries. Historians have whispered of as much as 60 tons of gold and silver, each bar, each coin, a fragment of human ambition and desire. Exquisite artifacts, thrones, ornate tableware, and rare treasures from the far reaches of Asia may also lie entombed, each waiting silently for a hand to disturb their perfect slumber, but none have been fully recovered. The Flor de la Mar has never been definitively found, and her treasures remain lost to time and tide. The estimated value of her cargo today is staggering. Even conservative estimates place it in the billions. Gold, silver, and gemstones, combined into a fortune that stretches beyond imagination. Some calculations suggest more than $2 billion, while others whisper figures approaching $3 billion. But these numbers are mere echoes of reality. The treasure itself lies beneath layers of silt and sand, beyond the reach of human certainty, guarded by currents, tides, and centuries of the ocean's quiet insistence. Adventurers and historians have tried for generations to locate the ship. The waters of the Strait of Malacca are narrow and treacherous, with strong currents and hidden shoals that conceal the wreck beneath shifting sands. Sonar scans and underwater mapping sometimes hint at shapes and shadows, but the ship's remains have never been definitively verified. The ocean keeps its secrets, well, hiding her timber, her cargo, and her story beneath the gentle sway of waves and the slow pulse of currents. Even the search is a meditation in patience and persistence. Divers move slowly through murky depths, scanning the sands, feeling the pulse of the ocean, tracing faint echoes of metal or timber. Each ripple of current, each subtle vibration beneath their feet or hands, becomes part of the rhythm of the hunt. Sometimes a shadow appears on sonar. Sometimes a shimmer catches the light of underwater lamps. But always the ship retreats, silent and untouched, leaving only dreams and quiet speculation in her wake. Legal and territorial complexities add their own subtle weight. Nations, with historical or territorial claims, negotiate, debate, and delay, each wishing to preserve the story of the Flor de la Mar as part of their own history. Yet the ocean refuses to be owned or hurried. She keeps her treasure and her story enfolded, letting only whispers of gold and faint metallic echoes rise into legend. And so, the Flor de la Mar sleeps beneath the waves, a living memory of ambition, conquest, and the unyielding pull of the sea. Treasure remains trapped in her hold, waiting in quiet eternity, her wealth a ghostly pulse beneath the deep. Explorers, dreamers, and historians continue to search, drawn by the promise of riches, the allure of history, and the soft, unbroken lullaby of the ocean that calls the ship's name. Even as centuries pass, her story persists. Timber, ropes, treasure, and water move together in perfect hypnotic rhythm. The ship, though unseen, is never silent. The swell of the ocean sings through her hull, the weight of gold and jewels hums beneath the currents, and the pulse of the sea carries her tale endlessly forward. Every diver who descends, every explorer who dreams, every map drawn or sonar sweep performed folds into the soft patient meditation of the ocean's rhythm, a gentle, endless lullaby that cradles the Flor de la Mar and all that she carries into quiet eternity. Beneath the waves, the treasures of the Flor de la Mar await, locked away in perfect stillness. Gold bars, coins, gemstones, ornate artifacts, and exotic relics remain undisturbed, cushioned by centuries of sediment. Swaying in harmony with the ocean's pulse, they are the sunken fortune of a lost age, suspended in time. Whispers of human ambition resting softly beneath the calm, infinite sea. And so the legend endures. The Flor de la Mar may never rise again, yet her story, her treasure, and her hypnotic song of timber and tide continue to drift across oceans and generations. Sailors, dreamers, and seekers are drawn to her whisper. The lullaby of waves and treasure, the eternal rhythm of a ship that sleeps beneath the deep, forever moving, forever present, forever part of the sea. And so, the Flor de la Mar remains beneath the waves, her treasures locked away in silence, Her story carried on the pulse of the ocean. The gold, the silver, the gemstones all undisturbed, waiting for explorers, dreamers, and storytellers to imagine what lies below. Even as the centuries pass, her legend whispers through currents, tides, and waves, a lullaby of adventure, mystery, and quiet wonder. And now, as you rest, may the story of the Flor de la Mar sail with you, drifting gently through dreams and imagination. If you enjoyed this voyage into history, make sure to subscribe to Lost at Sea for more hypnotic tales of shipwrecks, lost treasures, and the secrets of the deep. Give this video a like if the story moved you, and leave a comment, sharing what treasure you would hope to find if you could dive to the ocean floor. Until next time, let the waves guide you, and may the ocean's lullaby carry you into dreams.